How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. We are here every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. Sports Byline Broadcasting Network, streaming live on YouTube at 4wonline.com/YouTube, as well as our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/F4W video. And if you are listening through any of these means, you are welcome to subscribe to our Twitch channel for free. If you've got an Amazon Prime account, just head to twitch.tv/F4W video, hit the subscribe button, put in your Amazon Prime information, you get a free subscription. You can watch this show every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. We have a very exciting show here today. Jason Offutt joins us here today, who years ago we had on the program, back when this was only a podcast, and he had a book out about shadow people, and we interviewed him about that. He has got a new book out, just came out a little while ago, Chasing North American Monsters. Over 250 creatures from around the country. And we are going to talk to him about various monsters from around the country. And perhaps black-eyed kids, shadow people, and so much more. We have shirts available. Might as well throw that out there, f4wonline.com/shirts. That is f4wonline.com/shirts, so grab that. And if you have questions for Jason Offutt, you're welcome to send them to me, Bryan, at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. That is Bryan at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. You can always contact me on X and Blue Sky at Bryan Alvarez. I'm at 4W Online, Threads, Instagram, and Cameo. Back in just a moment to talk North American monsters and so much more with our special guest here today, Jason Offutt, here on After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Very happy today to be joined by Jason Offutt. Jason, how you doing here today?
I am doing great. The weather's wonderful, and my spring allergies are almost over. So it's been a great time of the year.
So you're North Carolina, is that right?
No, Northwest Missouri.
Northwest Missouri, all right. Yes, you were on the show many years ago when this was only a podcast, and we were talking about shadow people, I believe, that time.
That's been a while. That book came out in 2009.
Yes. We started that podcast probably around 2009, actually. It was a long time ago. But you got a new book that I think just came out several months ago. Is that right?
Actually, no. The book came out in 2019, but... the follow-up book to it comes out in September.
I see. Okay. All right. So, Chasing North American Monsters is the one I'm talking about here.
That's the one that comes out in September.
Okay.
It is the follow-up. It's the follow-up to Chasing American Monsters, which came out in 2019 and has done really well.
Okay. So wait. So Chasing American Monsters, that's the one that's already out.
Yes.
Okay. And the new one is what?
It's Chasing North American Monsters.
North American Monsters. Okay, I got it. Because
the first one, I went through all 50 states and covered about 250 monsters. I think 251. And then my publisher asked last October, "Hey, would you like to write another book for us?" And it's usually the other way around. It's usually the author's begging the publisher to publish their book.
Yes.
Yeah, but they asked me to do it, and I did. Every monster I could find between Greenland and Panama.
Okay, because I've been reading Chasing American Monsters. That's and I guess when I went to Amazon, I must have seen the publication date for the new one. So this one's been out for a little while, but I'm just reading it now, and that is exactly what it is. Chasing American Monsters. It's I guess 251 monsters. And if you open the book, like all the chapters are just all of the states. So, of course, I'm sure what everybody does is they open the book and they go to their state and they read all the monsters there, which is exactly what I did because I'm here in Washington State. And obviously I knew, there's Bigfoot sightings everywhere. So I wanted to see what else you had found. And you did find a couple of others, including the Bat Squatch.
Bat Squatch, yeah.
Yes. Tell me about this Bat Squatch.
Well, the Bat Squatch was it was noticed by somebody who was driving, and they saw something big in the road. It was at night, of course, when all the good encounters happen. Something big and bipedal in the road, and it was huge, and they thought maybe they were seeing a Sasquatch, and then it spread its wings. And it had bat-like wings, and the headlights. When the headlights hit it, it was kind of a purplish color, which I guess only the most fashionable cryptids wear.
Yes.
And it spread its wings and zip went up in the air and flew off. But it was about the Sasquatch size. It had fur, all arms longer than proportionally they should be, like a Sasquatch, and the same type of head. The biggest things of the difference were the wings and the purple color.
So, the Bat Squatch story, and then obviously there's Bigfoot, and then, we've had many guests on talking about Dogman. I mean, they're all number of strange, hairy cryptids that people talk about. And I guess the question to you is, you've written about all of these monsters. I don't presume you believe every single one of these stories, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't believe every single one of them. I included some that are obviously were hoaxed, like the Gronk from Pennsylvania. Which is a pig-like cryptid that is very sad. And if you hear somebody crying out in the forest, it's probably the Gronk. And the story goes that a hunter saw one and put it in a sack It was so sad that he just picked it up and put it in a sack and put it over his shoulder and walked home with it. And by the time he got home, all he had was a bag that was wet with tears. The Gronk had cried itself to oblivion.
Wow.
And I mean, that's obviously not something real, but there are a lot. It's fun, but there are a lot of encounters in that book that I think probably are, honestly. And you mentioned Sasquatch. If there's any cryptid in the U.S. that has to be real, I would lay my money on the big hairy guy.
Yeah, you would think that. I mean, I believe it seems to me the cryptids that people take the most seriously are Bigfoot and some lake monsters. Probably most notably Loch Ness. You know, some of the lakes here in America. I guess it's possible, but that would seem to be unlikely. But there are people that take that seriously, and maybe to a degree Chupacabra. But those seem to me to be the three. I guess maybe some flying cryptids, some pterosaur-like in the Texas area. Would you say those are the top cryptids that people would take most seriously as perhaps actually existing?
Yes, and those all the ones you just mentioned were ones that that I took seriously, that I thought might exist until I did research for Chasing North American Monsters and really looked into the origins of the Chupacabra. And that one, it was reported in Puerto Rico in this one neighborhood back in the 90s, or was it the 80s? I don't remember. But I think it was the 90s. It was right after the movie Species came out.
What a coincidence.
With Natasha Hendricks, I think it was. And she turned into a creature that was an awful lot like the description of the Chupacabra. And it came out, it was released in Puerto Rico right before people started reporting seeing it, and not all that many people did. So that one I'm kind of hedging my bet on.
So you believe that was a story that just basically took on a life of its own, and there have been reports, and usually it's like, oh, there was this weird animal. Well, it turned out to be a dog with mange or whatever, and you think that maybe it just sort of escalated from one probably not true story.
That is where I'm going with it. That's exactly it. However, I do entertain the thought. I'm not saying I believe this, but the more I've gotten into cryptids over the years, the more this is starting to make sense to me. I don't think that there is something called a Chupacabra, but I do think that there may be entities out there that when they're spoken about, when they're too much in the zeitgeist, when so many people are thinking about them, they actually appear. I mean, this happened with Slender Man. I mean, that was a creepypasta. It was completely fictional, but people reported actually seeing that, and I think some monsters are maybe, the result of that sort of thing.
So Mothman, would you say, would fall into that?
Very, very well could. Mothman comes and goes, not predictable, like your Sasquatch or lake monster would be. It's seen over way too many places. Lon Strickler over at Phantoms and Monsters has done some great work on Illinois Mothman sightings over the past 5-7 years, maybe. So I think Mothman does probably fit into that.
All right, we're going to head to our first break here in a moment, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about Slender Man, because that was something that was absolutely completely imaginary. It was made up, but then there have actually been sightings of it, and I'd like some more information maybe on any others that you did some research on where you kind of went back and saw that this all started from nothing, but then, strangely enough, became something. So, Jason Offit is our guest. Stand by, everybody. After Dark Radio Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Is here After Dark Radio. Jason Offit is our guest. Chasing American Monsters is the current book. Chasing North American Monsters is upcoming. And before the break, we were talking about Slender Man, which was a completely made-up fictional creature that next thing you know, there are actually reports of it. And we've had some people in the chat here bringing up The Rake, which appears to be something similar. So, Jason, let's talk about those two and anything else you can come up with.
Right. Well, yeah, Slender Man, honestly, I don't know who came up with it, but they did an absolutely brilliant job with creating something that this is where zombies and vampires and things like this come in. They're close enough to being human that it hits that uncanny valley for us. And really causes us to be creeped out. And Slender Man was like that. It got to be so popular that I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with the girls who were, I think they were 12 at the time. They're adults now. But in Wisconsin, who invited a friend over to stay the night, and with the express intent of stabbing her to death as a tribute to this fictional creature, so they could go live with him. And it was real enough to them. And like I said, that I did talk to a couple of people who reported seeing it. One on a playground, the other out in the woods when he was taking a hike in a national forest. And as I was saying before, I think a lot of these sightings of creatures might have something to do with the fact that there's another being pretending to be them. And you asked me before the break about one of them, and the Rake is one. It's very Gollum-like, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
I'm not sure when the Rake came out or when people started reporting him, but I have a feeling the Lord of the Rings had already come out.
Well, yeah, we have people in the chat here saying that the Rake appeared after Gollum appeared in Lord of the Rings.
Right. Yeah. So I'm thinking, much like Chupacabra, that's when the Rake came about. Another one that really springs to mind is the Black-Eyed Kids. I actually interviewed the guy who started this. He's a journalist from Texas. His name is Brian Bethel. And in 1998, he posted on an internet forum about an encounter he had. He got off his job at the newspaper after midnight, or right before midnight, around there, and he drove to a strip mall, and he was going to pay his cable bill. All he had to do is write a check, slip it through the night deposit box, and he was good. So he's sitting in his car, doors were locked. He had a window down a little bit. Just cracked, and he was writing out the check on the dash, and all of a sudden, two kids, like 16 and 14 years old, were in his window, were standing there looking at him, and that freaked him out. Of course it would. And the older one started talking. "Hi, we're just going to a movie. We forgot our money. Would you please take us to my house? It's just a few blocks away. We want to make sure we get to see this movie." And the first thing he wanted to do instinctively is unlock the door and let them in. And that is the same case with everybody dealing with Black-Eyed Kids. And I've interviewed, at least 100 people over the years who've encountered these. You want to help the kids, but then you notice something's wrong. They talk like adults. They have horrible breath. Their hair's greasy. They dress, years out of date. And then you notice their eyes are completely black, like a rat's. And that's what he noticed about this. He refused to let them in, put the car in reverse, and took off. And when he looked in his rearview mirror, they had been in an empty parking lot, and they were gone.
It's almost like it's almost like a modern day version of the Men in Black, just children.
Well, I've had I've talked to Nick Redfern, if you're familiar with Nick.
Yes.
He's written about Men in Black and about black-eyed kids maybe being Men in Black. I'm not sure. I don't really make the connection, but the disappearance is similar. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think it's kind of like the disappearance, but also like the weird, with the kids, it's like they talk like adults. The eyes are weird. There's something not right. And with the Men in Black, it was like the same thing. They'd show up in like an old car that was like sparkly clean. They'd have the suits, but they would talk weird. It was like something. It was.
They had the pasty skin, and
yes.
They wouldn't know how a pencil worked.
Yes,
so weird things like that. Yeah. Those things definitely are similar. Definitely are. But from that posting on that message board, it exploded over the years, and people were seeing black-eyed kids all over the planet. I know because I interviewed people not just from the U.S. and Canada, but Brazil, Europe, South Africa, Australia, Saudi Arabia. People were seeing the same thing everywhere. But where do these things fit in history, in mythology? These kids with black eyes. I never was able to hammer that down, but it appeared. It got huge for a number of years when people stopped talking about it as much. I haven't heard a black-eyed kid story in quite a while.
Do you think maybe like let's take Chupacabra? And actually, first the question would be, when you interviewed him about that original post, I mean, did you get the impression that this was like Chupacabra, he made it up on the internet, or did you get the impression that he believed what he saw?
I definitely I believed him when he told me that he saw what he saw, and he was like, he sounded scared as he was talking to me, as he was reliving this, and he said every time that I still live in the same town, whenever I drive by that same strip mall, I get scared because I don't want to see them again.
So I guess the question would be, and I guess the answer might be different in every situation, but black-eyed kids, for example, do you think that something like that would be more, okay, somebody made a report, and then maybe it's like the Slender Man where everybody heard it and then they thought they saw it or whatever? Or do you think it's more a situation where these things have been going on for a long time and it took somebody reporting it for other people to then say, you know what, that did happen to me. Maybe they didn't think about it much at the time. It was just kind of a creepy thing. But then when someone else told the story, they were like, man, maybe there was something paranormal about that experience I had.
Right. I see why you say that. And yeah, it does make sense. But I think the black-eyed kids encounters are weird and scary enough that it would make a huge impression, and people probably would have talked about it. I mean, people have had that same fear of talking about ghost encounters and of talking about UFO encounters and Bigfoot encounters over the years, but people have still talked about them. So if people have been encountering these black-eyed kids for centuries, I think we would have had more information about them. So it seems to be something that, just like the Slender Man, just started.
We had somebody asking about this on the chat. Have you heard of the mantis monster?
The mantis, as in the insect?
Yes.
Well, of course, I know about the extraterrestrial mantis people.
Yes.
That. Of course,
he says,
they exist.
He says we need an episode on the mantis monster. They appear in swamps and look like a mantis, but standing like a man. And he adds, they screw with your thoughts. I had never heard of this one.
Oh, well, there have been reports about this in the UFO world for a very long time. These are supposedly one of the extraterrestrial species that has found Earth and has lived here for years. They are humanoid mantis people, and they can communicate telepathically, and they can do some controlling telepathically. And these entities are they never do anything good. You know, they never buy Girl Scout cookies for my niece. You know, they're not good things.
Pretty sure if you were
So
selling
yes,
Girl
I am
Scout
familiar with
cookies,
them. Do they exist? I mean, with all of this stuff, who knows? I'm not purporting to think any of these things exist, but I do think some do. And if somebody says, I know for sure something exists, they probably don't know what they're talking about.
So on the topic of Bigfoot, I mean, we've had many Bigfoot researchers here on the show, and there's basically two camps. There's one camp that insists this is a flesh and blood creature, Gigantopithecus, whatever, undiscovered species, and then there's the other camp that is firmly in the this is a paranormal entity. You're wasting your time looking for an animal. You know, it's not of this world essentially. Where would you fall?
All right. I am not discounting the paranormal Bigfoot or the interdimensional Bigfoot or the UFO Bigfoot. I'm not discounting those at all. But I am the type of I love the scientific method. You know, you collect you got empirical evidence, and you collect enough to be able to satisfy your hypothesis that yes, this exists, and then it turns into a theory if you can, if you can collect enough.
Yes. Well, hold on. Hold that thought. We'll be back in just a moment with more After Dark Radio Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Back here on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. Jason Offit is our guest. Chasing American Monsters is the book. Kindle Unlimited. You can find it on Amazon.com. Chasing North American Monsters coming out later this year. And I'm going to talk about some North American monsters in a moment, but we were talking about the flesh and blood Bigfoot. You lean in that direction.
The flesh and blood... Okay, you just kind of cut out. Am I okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. With the flesh and blood Bigfoot, I am, as I was talking about science earlier.
Maybe he's not good. We might have a connection issue here. Let's see what I can do. Jason, can you hear me, or your internet died? All right. Well, we're gonna try. We're gonna try to reconnect him here because that sounds like a bad connection. All right. Stand by. So sometimes I think he's on Google Voice, which sounds really good. But the problem is, hold on.
Hello. Please state your name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to connect you.
Bryan Alvarez. You're getting a behind-the-scenes look, everybody. Hopefully this works, or we got a problem. All else fails, I'll send this number to Dom. We'll see if we can connect him there. Not looking good. All right, I'm going to send this number to Dom. Dom, I'm sending this number to you.
Subscriber you have called.
And we'll see if you can connect him through a byline. So stand by, everybody. And then we're going to rock and roll in another way here on this program. Sound good? All right. Dom, I've sent you his email. And you can go ahead and see if we can get him on. All right, in the meantime, as always, we've got a lot of emails here. You can always email me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. That is Bryan at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. And, he's seen his internet has died. Let's see. Just message him here as we get going. I'm going to tell him the producer is going to call. And we'll see if we can get him on that way. All right, you can send me the emails. We got a bunch here from the past couple of weeks, so let's jump into one of them here. This is from Fred, who goes by Cheeky Monkey. He says, when I was a kid, I was watching some paranormal mystery show on TV at my grandma's house when they started talking about ball lightning. My grandma told me about the time when my uncle was just a small child and a glowing ball came down the chimney and rolled across the floor, knocking my uncle down before rolling out the door, leaving scorch marks on the flooring. This was at their farm in North Dakota, and I'm still not sure if it was real or not. This actually sounds very much like ball lightning. I've never experienced ball lightning. But it is absolutely a thing. And I guess the question is, can ball lightning come down a chimney and can it leave scorch marks? I don't really know a lot about it, but it is a rare and unexplained phenomenon described as luminescent spherical objects that vary from pea-size to several meters in diameter. Though usually associated with thunderstorms, the observed phenomenon is reported to last considerably longer than the split-second flash of lightning bolt, is a phenomenon distinct from St. Elmo's fire or a will-o'-the-wisp. Wasn't will-o'-the-wisp one of Jeff Hardy's characters? But let's see. Let's find out if we can find out if these leave a scorch mark. Not sure if they... Yes, Dom?
I've got your guess.
All right, let's bring him up. Jason, you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
That was...
Wow, I was just praising science and computers let me down.
Yeah, well, that happens sometimes. So, I think for about the 8th time, we're going to try to get into this flesh and blood Bigfoot thing.
Ah! right, so flesh and blood Bigfoot. I am not opposed to the paranormal Bigfoot hypothesis. However, I don't want to prove one unknown, which is Bigfoot, with another unknown, interdimensional Bigfoot. So let's work on the flesh and blood one. Get that out of the way. If that's not true, we'll move on to something else. But I think there's plenty of proof for a flesh and blood Bigfoot that's where we need to really focus. If you're going toward the paranormal Bigfoot, you're giving up, honestly. Because where do you go from here?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think the argument for the paranormal Bigfoot would be that there is just an overarching phenomenon that manifests in all sorts of different ways, whether it's a Bigfoot or a fairy or maybe a UFO or a dog man. It's really just a larger phenomenon. And so each of these things that you see is part of that larger phenomenon, as opposed to, well, here's a flesh and blood Bigfoot, here's a flesh and blood Loch Ness monster, etc.
And I am not going to argue with that whatsoever. I am going to agree with this point because there are so many cases to where, fairies, for example. You mentioned fairies. Fairy folk have been encountered all across the planet in every culture before our cultures were connected, and they look the same, they behave the same. Oh my gosh, that's evidence to me. The same with Bigfoot. The same creature has been encountered all over the planet over the millennia. So I do think that there is a connection somewhere. I don't really talk about it much because I don't know what it is, and I can't really throw out my own ideas because I don't really have anything other than it seems like there is a connection with all sorts of the paranormal, including UFOs, in this.
I would say that if you accept the paranormal explanation, then it kind of sort of maybe ties everything together, where if there is a paranormal aspect to this, where all of these different things are one phenomenon, then you could maybe even argue that, yeah, well, Slender Man could have popped up and Black-Eyed Kids could have popped up. Kind of like Stephen King's It. Whatever your fear is, whatever the monster of the week is, it manifests through whatever this overarching phenomenon is.
Right, and that very well could be the case. I just want to make sure that Bigfoot is not just a big monkey in my backyard before before I'll go somewhere else.
Sure, exactly.
I want to prove that the Loch Ness monster or Ogopogo or Champ or any of the other ones don't exist before we start, looking for anything else. It's the scientific method. Let's just go down the let's just go down the list of things and look through the evidence, make tally marks and then we'll make our decision.
Is there a particular monster that you've written about either in the first book or the new book coming out where, let's just say that from all of the investigation you've done, you believe that this one very likely could be real, but it is also the most bizarre one that you could think of? Is there anything in particular?
Well, there's one. All right, so I have a follow-up to Chasing North American Monsters that's coming out in 2026 called Chasing the World's Monsters. And this is an absolutely ridiculous creature. It's the Zizi in China. X-I-Z-I. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But it is anywhere from a foot square to 6 foot square. Apparently they grow up. But they are flat. They look like a piece of leather, sometimes described as a rug, because some of them have algae on them because they're aquatic. They have hooks all along. They're rectangular shapes, and they have hooks all along their sides. And, of course, people ignore something like that until it raises up, latches onto a person, with those hooks, wraps around their arm, their leg, their torso, and a bunch of suckers on the bottom bleed them dry, sucks all the blood out of them, and then it moves on. That is a really bizarre creature, and the one thing that makes me think maybe that actually exists is the fact that there's an identical creature that has been long known in South America. You know, before we got connected, this thing was talked about, and it's exactly the same creature. I find that bizarre and actually really cool.
So they have the same reports in a completely different place in a completely different time.
Yes.
That is bizarre. I have never heard of disease.
And again, it's the same creature.
Wow.
Do what?
So I do want to ask one other question before we run out of time here, because you got the new book coming out, The North American Monsters, and I wanted to ask about Mexico, because if you go online, for whatever reason, if you want to see like video of some guy being stalked by a gnome, or you want to see a UFO video over some, Mexico City or whatever, there are so many weird things that come out of Mexico, it seems to me. Like it's like every day there's some new wild footage, and it's from Mexico. Have you found that to be the case, or am I imagining this?
Oh, absolutely. And there's you mentioned UFO. There is a great UFO video out of Mexico City from decades ago that looks amazing. I think that they are maybe a little bit more open to this than we are. America's, or the U.S. we've been really closed off to paranormal things. We've tended to make fun of them over the decades until, honestly, now we don't make fun of them as much. Frankly, when I saw the New York Times post a front page article about UFOs, that blew my mind. But I think that's it. Different countries view these things through a different lens, and Mexico seems to be more open.
In your current book of just American monsters, is there any particular state that sticks out as having, like, by far the widest variety of monsters?
California's got quite a few, as does Texas. It's got everything from Bigfoot to Goat Man to living dinosaurs. So that's a nice spread.
Now,
but one of the weird things in West Virginia, of course, has Mothman. It's got Goat Man, and it's got a nice alien encounter from the 1960s. So it's for a small state, it's got quite a few.
Now, do you find very quickly in all of these different states that have different reports, are they clustered in particular areas? Are they kind of spread out all over the state?
Well, it really depends on this. If they're probably spread out in most places, but they seem clustered because of the population. If you have a lot of people in a place, they're more likely to see things.
Yeah.
Like West Virginia, there are three major sightings around Point Pleasant.
Well, hold that thought. We'll be right back in a moment, everybody. After Dark Radio Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Here After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. We had a couple of technical hiccups here and there, but you know what? It was a great show with Jason Offit, and we're very happy to have him on and can't wait to have him on again. And Jason, tell everybody about your books and where they can get them.
Well, my books are all on Amazon or at their individual publishers. I've got a number of paranormal books, including hauntings and one on specifically on shadow people called Darkness Walks.
Yes.
And the cryptid ones. The first one being Chasing American Monsters. Chasing North American Monsters is coming out this September, and Chasing the World's Monsters is coming out next year.
And what's after that? Chasing Monsters Throughout the Universe?
Man, I hope they pay for my trip.
Well, you know, there's a lot of out of this world. We talked about the mantis. I mean, there's allegedly many different species of aliens, so you could actually almost do a book hunting monsters out of this world. So who knows? But hey, we got to get through the first two, right? The first three. So.
First, yeah, I'm looking at Chasing the World's Monsters 2. It hasn't been approved yet, but there are a lot of things out there that I haven't tackled yet, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
Well, Jason, I want to thank you so much for doing the show today. I very much appreciate it, and we'll get you on here again soon. Talk more monsters. Make sure you check out Chasing American Monsters, Kindle Unlimited, if you have that, on Amazon.com. And we are out of time. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you again next week. After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.